Hey, everybody. Welcome. Hello. Let's see if this works. This is the first time we've gone live in this new group. But with everyone talking about homeschooling, we just thought, well, we should just get on here and see if we can offer some support. So I actually made a document for you guys. And I would suggest that you can pull up the document, and I'm going to look at mine too and sort of just go through it a little bit with you guys. It's pretty, so you can print it if you want. But if you have any questions, feel free to post them. I saw a few people posted or answered or said they had questions in the other post, and so I'll try to address those too with regards to scheduling. And we have a 15, 11, 8, and 4-year-old. So we're, across the board, we're dealing with every single age bracket, really, from high school down to preschool. And we've definitely modified over the years what we do in terms of, when I first started, I was just a homeschool mom, stay-at-home mom. I didn't have a business. And now we have a business that the two of us work together full-time, and managing family life at the same time is where a lot of people are, thanks to coronavirus. A lot of people are home, working from home, but with the kids in the background, also trying to get their work done from home. So it can be a little hairy, right? But I think we have some really good suggestions for you, and also are happy to kind of brainstorm because we don't pretend to have it all figured out. I just yelled at my children because they were hurting each other accidentally. So every day there's, I won't call it a battle, but it's definitely
a war.
Not a war. It's not a war. No.
It's a happy family.
It's like sports, like you like play with people who have like a team and you're all on the same team. And I think remembering that is really important because it helps when you think, okay, this person is making me very angry. How can we work together better? So anyway, that's one of my key tips.
How many people are joining actually homeschool now? How many people are being forced to homeschool now?
Yes. What ages of your kids? I'd love to see what ages were.
How many people aren't homeschooling at all? Because I saw Tina King join. Tina, you're not homeschooling, are you? Just Barry.
Tina and Barry live across the street. And I might call on you a few times in the future to see if you want to come and take the kids so I don't kill them or something. I think that's a key element. Like, I know it's coronavirus and so we can't really get together, but community is huge.
You can't
and we're going to have to rely more heavily on community, and we can do that. Thank heavens for the internet. I mean, I feel like we really are building some legitimate bonds, and it's kind of fun to see that social media work in that way, because I think so often it's more haphazard. And now it feels like really intentional, a little bit more intentional anyway. So it's excited to see that. But anyway, hey Adele, hey Kathy, thanks for saying something. Oh, kids too young still, but definitely looking into it. Yes. So Adele is my hero because she's got 4 kids under 4 and under. So she's amazing. And actually
at that age is just surviving.
Yeah, you're just surviving. But I will say that as they get older, it actually might be easier for you to school them because they're going to be more on the same page. So you're going to be able to like kind of group them together a little bit more. Mine are spread out. There's 4 years almost between each of them. Only 2.5 between the middle ones, but they're on very different pages. So we do have to it's a lot of moving pieces at our house. So I'll give you some ideas. Forced, Kale's 8. Okay. Amanda, don't worry. 1 8-year-old is going to be fine.
Yeah.
So if your 8-year-old's anything like our 8-year-old, really at that time, it's more about just managing their energy, because there's so much energy in an 8-year-old, at least in our 8-year-old. She is full of energy. In fact, she went to bed. I need to go reconcile with her because she was bouncing all over the place and her brother. And that happens pretty regularly. So for us with her, we're really just like managing her energy. And of course, all kids are different. So maybe I don't think any of our other 2 were that energetic, but yeah.
I feel like 8 is like one of the ages where they still find a lot of wonder in everything.
Magic.
So magic and just, the simplest things, just being outside. Like, I think that's a key part, and I'll jump in and probably spoil for Lacey a little bit.
You're spoiled.
The key point for this is remember that you're not trying to replicate school. And that, like, when I had that kind of epiphany, that was a lot for me. Is homeschooling, forced or regular, is not replicating.
Well, let me just put it this way. Because some of you, if your kids are coming home from school, you probably are trying to replicate their day because you're trying to like help them get in that same routine that they're used to. But I will tell you that you'll probably find more success if you sort of let that slide, let that containment slide, like that idea of that you need to replicate what they're doing with their teachers at school, because it's just not physically possible in the home. There's too much going on. There's too many moving pieces. You need to make them lunch. there's no lunch lady. You need to be their gym teacher. There's no gym teacher, right? Like you have to figure out how you can work together and help them find their own sort of little mini passions and not feel like they have to sit at a desk for such and such amount of time or do this many worksheets.
And that's the other thing is homeschool doesn't have to be all day. Like our homeschool is like a few hours.
Yeah, and I'm going to review the schedule, but that's like pivotal because I think at school they're trying to fill these hours and they're trying to meet these criteria, and I don't know what's going to look like for end of grade testing this year, right? None of us knows what that's going to look like, but I want you to just relieve yourself that even if you're like going to have to do end of grade testing and your kid is coming home for the first time, let that go, because those are standards by which somebody made up. They're totally arbitrary, and no one is expecting you to be able to pull that off. And also the other things that you were doing before you brought your kid home. So I just want to relieve you of that a little bit, because it's just, you don't need to take it on. You do not need to pull that off. Okay. There's a system in place at the school that they know how to pull that off, and you do not need to try to figure that out, right? We're just in survival mode here for all of us, trying to figure out how to live in a world that's different than it was a week ago, right? So
Amanda, do you talk on the phone for your job a lot, or is it mainly computer?
Yay. Yeah, Amanda, good question. Yes, and I work from home normally. Yeah, so, well, that's good though. You're used to working from home, so you probably have a defined space at home. That's one of the key elements, is I think finding a space where you can be working is really important. And we have a space in our house where if we're sitting at that desk, we're working, okay? Like, don't just come up on us and mama, right? Like, it's just a determined.
They still do that.
They still do from time to time, but they actually have learned that there are limits, and that we will respond much better if they wait until our time for that. And we usually have headphones on too. So like, there's multiple. We did this addition in our home, added square footage, and we really should have built in some more doors. But our house is almost free of doors, except for our bedroom, which is not my favorite place to work because it's my sanctuary. I don't want to work in my sanctuary. Right. So, but anyways, point being that, yeah, having some defined space. But the other thing is, if you've ever worked in a co-working space, you can really set up your dining room table like a co-working space. Like CoLab is a place that we go to work, and it's just a room full of people working. And somebody will say something and there'll be a little short conversation, and then you'll be like, okay, back to their work, back to the grindstone, right? And that can be really magical to do, especially if you have kids that are getting a little bit older. I mean, even the 8-year-old can do that on some level. I would say the magic number is probably 11 or 12, when you can really sit at a table and sort of work beside each other in this way. And it can be really fun. And
we come up with a lot of really good ideas that way, because we'll stop and be like, hey, and go back and forth. The other thing I wanted to mention that I was thinking about the other day is, so if you're used to, like, this might be for you, Amanda, a little bit, but used to having the kids go away for the whole day and be gone and keeping your house tidy, everybody has to release that too. And homeschool parents will tell you, like, when you're home 24/7, your house is going to be a mess. And you can drive, like, when I first retired from my other business, it drove me crazy because I was like, we got to keep this house clean. But the reality is, we're all here all the time.
All day long.
And
every
if we
meal,
turn this
snack.
Computer around right now, you'd see it's covered in books.
We can. Let's do that. That would be fun. I'm going to turn the computer around, and this is actually pretty, and you can see there's mess over in the kitchen. It's not so bad. We just cleaned up. We tried to get it a little tidy before we go to bed. But you can see we're covered with books, right? It was sort of like we got to the end of the day. We're like, okay, it doesn't make sense to clean it up because we're just going to get it back out again tomorrow. So yeah, this table is where majority of our stuff happens, I would say, for the majority of the year. Now that we're getting into the nicer weather, which, oh my gosh, thank goodness for that in the midst of this virus, we'll spend way more time outside together and separately. Tidy house, Adele.
Adele knows.
Adele doesn't have any children that are going to help her clean the house. Your house is going to be a wreck. It's okay. And I think when you see the schedule, you're going to be like, oh, okay, we can come up with a system that will make this work. And I will tell you, we have literally really hit a sweet spot, even in the last 4 months, with our schedule and with our kind of working together on making everything work, all together as a family. So, first of all, we have the dynamic of husband and wife working together full time, which you guys now, I guess, spouses are all together again, which is different too, right? That's different.
Working on the same business together.
Yeah, we're working on the same business. Not all of you are working on with your children at the same time, because, we have different opinions maybe about what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, all of those different things. So it's definitely like a reality check. That is just something that I think we need to keep in mind, is that these schedules. Like what I'm giving you is just like a guide. It's not a set in stone. And we use this as our guide too. Like we, stuff comes up, things happen, things don't happen like this week, right? Where everything is just totally
That's
gone.
why I was wondering what your schedule's going to be like. Because right now, like I was literally scheduling somebody to come over and I'm like, you pick whatever day you want because we have nothing.
Wide open.
Yeah. We literally have nothing on the
wide
calendar.
open. Yeah. So there are some specific things that I'm very particular about trying to guard, to safeguard in terms of my schedule for myself and my schedule, like with the kids as well. So I will hit on this. If you want to pull up, I've already told some of you guys, but if you didn't see, I'm going to copy paste it again in the comments. That is just a link to a document I just made that I think will be our guide for the rest of this call. And if I just keep asking your questions. If I don't see them immediately, I'll get to them before we end. But where did all right. So our gentle, lazy homeschool rhythm. So here's the thing. Like I said, we're not very much like highly structured individuals. Neither of us is really type A. Neither of us is really about like, what do they call those routines? Not the routine, but the program, like scheduling. It's just not something that we've ever really been, neither of us personality wise. We're much more go with the flow.
I'm a very much a checklist kind of person.
He loves lists. I don't even like lists. I like spewing out things and being like, yeah, maybe not, like so there's all these different dynamics, but scheduling is not something that has been super strong for either of us. And so coming up with this schedule has been kind of a game changer because it gives our kids the structure that they need. So they need structure, okay? They need to know what to expect every day. Like Drew and I can wake up together and be like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Let's do this together, right? But when the kids don't know what's coming next, they feel overwhelmed and they get really frustrated, and you can see it. It just wears on them. When they know what to expect, when they know when they wake up what's expected of them, they start to thrive. And I think they would all agree that they feel so much better when they know what's expected of them. And I'll tell you this is probably the most pivotal thing. Let me read this quote really quick because I want to settle your minds about what good education looks like. Education is not the filling of a bucket, but the lighting of a fire. William Butler Yeats says that, and several other people say that, like similar things. And I want you to think about that because a lot of times we feel like, okay, we need to pump them full of these facts, right? And so they can pass a test. But I think we can all agree that the test passing method is not something that we took with us into adulthood and are like, oh, I'm so glad I took that test in 8th grade. Now I know all about biology in a way. No, I don't remember anything about 8th grade biology that I knew for a time in order to pass the test. What any good education experience was like for me, it was something that made me interested. So really just be thinking about ways that you can get not only your kids interested, but yourself interested. Because if you're interested, they're going to be interested. Not always. That's not a fail-proof model because sometimes you're like so interested and you're like, isn't this the coolest thing ever? And you're like, Mom, you're dumb. That's what they'll say to you. I promise. But the truth is they are seeing you, even when they're telling you that you're dumb, they are seeing you be passionate and excited and learning. And that is what they need to see from you. They don't need to remember the information you're teaching. They need to remember the way in which you taught it or you shared it, and then just, being excited about it. Okay, so if you look at the schedule, I would share screen if I could, but you can on Facebook Lives very easily. So 8 a.m., it's a wake up time, it's eat breakfast time. So if you're used to waking up much earlier, then happy day. You don't have to if you don't want to. If you love to, then you can start your day at 7. You can start your day at 6 if that's what works for you.
I try and start mine at 7 because I've found that myself, like I am my best self when I have like an hour without anybody else, which I didn't really realize. And for a long time, I didn't want to sacrifice sleep because I love sleep. But yeah. I am my best self. I usually get up at 7, work out, meditate, make coffee, and then Lacey.
And I wake up when the coffee machine makes its daily music. So that's when I get up. I take a few minutes for myself. I come out and I drink my coffee. And usually that's about 8 o'clock. And then by 9, we all sit down and gather at our table and we do what we call poetry. And that just means each of us has a poetry book that we read from. I read Psalms. Drew reads another sort of biblical knowledge book. And he has a poetry book, and everybody is encouraged to pick a poem that they want to read. Sometimes they're working on memorizing a poem, whatever. Short stories, I've really enjoyed reading O. Henry with them. It could look like reading scripture, could look like singing songs. This time is just the setting. So it's just one of those things where we can be flexible with what happens at this time, but this time being set as the start of the day is really important. And if you think about it, it's what happens at schools too, right? Everybody's at their desk. Well, at least when I went to school, I don't know for sure what happens now. Then the principal would come on the loudspeaker, announcements would be made, everybody gets on the same page. You say the Pledge of Allegiance. There's all these different little rhythms that happen. And this is something that I think is good to bring into the house. And it definitely gives us that time to go through, okay, what are today's objectives? While I'm talking about this, I think one of the key elements that's made our life feel more, maybe successful isn't the right word, but satisfying over the last few months is that we have implemented on Sunday afternoons. We all sit down as a family and review the week's plans. Everything that's on the calendar, all the appointments, all the kids stuff, which obviously that doesn't take, we did it this last Sunday and we're like, well, but we did talk about like what we want to do on our property, what we want to work on our farm.
Well, that's part of it is we talk about the farm list, what
are our priorities and what
if you don't have a farm, even your house, your cars.
Oh yeah, there's about a million things in our house that we could work on while we're here. Could be cleaning the pantry, could be cleaning out closets.
And if you've got all that settled, then help somebody else.
Yeah.
Put that on your list,
That's right.
The other thing I was going to say too is on Sundays, we just very recently also implemented just completely reviewing finances on Sunday. Which isn't
a part of the homeschool rhythm, but it has been a major component in our relationship, but financially as well. So that actually might be a whole nother call sometimes. But so that starting time is super important and has been a really powerful way for us to have better days, because from that space, everybody goes in their direction, whatever it might be. Okay. And, my 8-year-old usually sits and we go through her stuff together. What's been happening recently is my 11-year-old has been helping my 8-year-old do her work instead of me helping her do her work, because we had set this goal, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And so now they're helping each other a little bit, which is really magic. I mean, that's like beautiful when you see, your older kid reading to your younger kid. There's nothing more like, it melts your heart. You're like, this is what I wanted, right? This is what I wanted. Okay, just keeping with that schedule we've made. Okay, so I have a star here with the note by 10:30. It's real important that you set a time for snacks. So especially with the limited food supply issue that we have going on.
This might be another one for you, Amanda. That's not used to people.
You're not
unless
used to
you
the
already
mess.
Have snack time.
Yeah, you're not used to the kids eating constantly. They will eat constantly. They will eat, and from the time they wake up until 20 minutes after they go to bed, if they could. So definitely kind of setting some parameters there is real important, or else you're just going to be like, So my kids are not allowed to have a snack until 10:30. So they eat their breakfast, and they're very independent, self-sufficient eaters. So they come out and they make yogurt and granola most mornings. Sometimes they make a smoothie. There's a few like staples that we have for breakfast. And then when we
don't have cereal. Pretty well.
I wasn't going to call that out right now because the dismissal of cereal.
Amanda says constant. Yep.
Constant. Yes. See, right?
Amanda, I'm so glad you're on here.
What is it? So if you know Hobbits, they're like, what about second breakfast?
They have tea time.
So we laugh at Hobbits. We're like, they don't know anything about how constantly our kids can eat. Like Hobbits have nothing when next to homeschool kids. Anyway, so 10:30 is our first snack time. Then lunch is at usually about 12:30 or 1, and we're flexible there. It depends on how quickly everybody gets all their other things done, right? And really, they have way more time here to do their own thing than they need. So when I say their own thing, we have a curriculum we purchased. I think it was like $45 per age group. That's very based on literature. So they do a lot of reading, historical fiction. They have history books that they have to read through. They have some little projects they have to do every day with regards to kind of like retaining that information they have. So they are just really like pretty self-directed because they have that schedule already made. And I did not make that schedule. I actually tried for a long time to come up with a system of like unschooling and like coming up with these different routines and schedules and curriculum. And then I realized this is stupid. People have done this already. I don't have to create everything from scratch. And so I found a couple of great resources that I really like that put that all together.
Part of that's probably because you really like to make things from scratch.
I love to make things from scratch.
Yeah,
I do.
We both do.
We both do.
Yeah.
And also, like, I love to learn. So part of that, like, there's all these things. But what I love about the curriculum is that I can learn from what they're learning too. Like, we have been exposed to so many different books that I never would have known existed. And ours is called Build Your Own Library. It's a secular Charlotte Mason base, which she is all about lighting that fire, not filling the bucket, but lighting the fire, encouraging kids to follow nature and just literature and all of these things. So anyway, it's a great resource, and you just buy a lot of books, right? You buy a lot of books from, we go to Ed McKay's a lot, obviously that's not as much on the table, but fortunately there are some really great tools. Libby app is a free library app where we can get a lot of our books. And so a lot of what the kids have read are on that app. We buy a lot of really cheap softcover books that are, $6 or less for them to read. And yeah, so it's been,
and we do fill in with like books they're interested in too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like Amanda was saying, she's having trouble with her
Kale, engaged in reading. He loves everything else. Reading is a struggle. And he's 8. So
8 is a tough age.
8, yeah, we have an 8-year-old girl, and she is just really becoming a very good reader. So no pressure there. It takes kids time. So I would say the best way to encourage that is to put time in the schedule where you're reading aloud to him. Mm-hmm. Reading aloud is magic. I mean, it's just this time where even my 15-year-old, they all love to sit and listen to us read aloud. So do not discount like, oh, they're getting too old for that. They never get too old for that. I actually include the next page is a list of some of our favorite read aloud books. And I think that I would highly encourage you to look at that list, because all of those books my 8-year-old loves, every single one of them. And as they hear these stories and realize that books can be, full of these adventures they can't have anywhere else, that will set the tone for him to want to read more. And give it time, and also feed it. Something that Drew did recently was he found a book for my 8-year-old that was a graphic novel on her reading level, and she ate that up. She flipped about it. She read it, and she wouldn't sleep. She just read the whole thing. And this was really a new thing for her. It wasn't like she was like, for us. It was really exciting. So then we bought her the sequel and so on and so forth. So it's just one of those things, like just do little things to encourage them. And those are 2 that have really worked pretty magnificently. Okay. So then 12:30 to 1-ish, we regather for lunch. And then after that, everybody has to complete their day's work. If they haven't, usually they have, but we also have on that list is they are all taking music. They are all taking ballet. So they need to do at some point during the day, they need to practice their instruments. And I'm so thankful. When I was a kid, it was such a struggle to get me to practice, but it's because I was at school all day long and I did not want to sit back down and learn. I wanted to just be done, right? But I had to practice every day and it was such a struggle. And my kids are eager to play their instruments. So it's really I thought it would be something I'd have to battle. And there were moments of battle for sure, but I will say, good, Amanda, read aloud. You're going to love it. And just check out the list. And I'll tell you some that you can get potentially for free. We'll talk about that. But
my favorite part of reading out loud is picking books that you like too.
Yeah.
Like it's been a few years now. We read the whole Hobbit over one winter.
Yeah.
And it was super entertaining for me. The kids picked up most of it. They liked it, but I mean, those kind of books are such an adventure. You don't have to have like books. I don't know. That's kind of part of our rule too. In some ways, it's like when we're doing things, it's got to be maybe it's just my rule.
No,
it's got to be entertaining for me too. Like I don't want to read some like dumbed down kids book.
No.
To my older kids.
No, if they want to read some of those silly books like the Babysitter's Club or whatever, like they're totally allowed to.
On their own time. I'm not.
In their own time. Not with me. So yeah. Okay, so let's see, complete unfinished list. Okay, self-guided, free time until dinner. So free time, right? Like outside time, if you can give them outside time right now, especially being outside in the sun is so key when you're building your immune system. My kids swing a lot. My kids have chores daily. We'll talk about that in a minute. And it's just one of those things, like they are good. If they know they have free time until dinner, then they'll take advantage of free time until dinner. They also know they have to complete the list before they can have any screen time. And that list includes not just their school curriculum, but also their chores and getting things tidy. So I will say that, electronics are such a drive for kids this day and age that if messiness is something that drives you nuts, then you need to like say, okay, look, you can have this electronic, but it's only contingent on you taking responsibility for some of the messes that you've made, if not all of the messes that you've made, including laundry. Okay. So laundry is a key element. And if you have an 8-year-old or I would say starting really about seven. Yeah, 7 is probably the age where kids can do their own laundry, start to finish, which is kind of...
As long as you're not one of those separate the colors and the whites kind of people.
Yeah. If that's true, then you can disregard everything. I'm just joking. Yeah, no, we haven't separated colors in a really long time. But yeah, no, kids not only can they, but they actually do want to take charge of their own lives in this way. It makes them feel empowered. I mean, my 7-year-old loves to cook eggs. Well, she's 8 now, but when she was 7, she loves to cook eggs for us and do all the things by herself. So I think that giving them space to do that more not only helps them feel empowered, and it might take a little more time from us in the beginning, but it will free us up too. So that's actually something I think we're in this magical place right now where we've managed to give our kids enough space that they have, I'm losing a word right now, but autonomy maybe is the right word, where they feel responsible and do a lot of the things that need to be done. Not without sometimes an argument or two, but it's still, they know it's expected of them. Okay, so just scrolling down here, this is just like totally like off the cuff ideas for activities that you can do each day just to kind of right now especially kill some time. If you don't want to do curriculum, or even if you are doing curriculum, this is something that you can fit in as just a good break, 15 minutes or so, maybe longer during each day. Nature walks. We love to go on hikes around our property. Public parks, as long as you stay away from everybody else, I think are okay right now. Art together. There are great free art programs online. There are great paid art programs online that you can do. We've had our favorite is Waldorfish. You'll see it in the next page, but there's some really great options. Game time, board games, school education type games, math games, flashcard games. They're all good. And I'll list some of those games off down in the next group experiments. So like science projects, we have a couple of books that were super cheap at thrift stores, I think, and they'll have experiments. One's just like paper, straws, and balloons. Like every experiment, that's all you need. So there's a lot of different things like that.
The old volcano. They just did the volcano the other day.
Did they?
All by themselves, yeah.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, it was Eliza's turn to do the volcano. At one point, we made that volcano, right?
We did. We got
the
a kit,
paper mache
one of those
and
kits.
everything.
Yeah.
And
they've reused it.
Yeah, they're reusing it.
You don't even need that though. When I was a kid, all we had was like a cup, and we would put baking soda and vinegar.
Yeah, I mean, that's all. Yeah. When I was a kid, I covered my arms in baking soda and poured vinegar on them. Mom, are you watching?
Okay, so what else did I put on here? Oh, cleaning. So for us, Friday is the time of prep. So we take the time at nighttime on Friday to nighttime on Saturday as a day of rest for us. So we do not do any work. We try to turn electronics off and keep them off for that whole period. So we try to clean and have a really nice dinner that night. And so the kids know that they actually do the majority of the cleaning. We pay them for that. And we actually take a couple of hours to go downtown. We won't be doing that anymore because they closed to a co-working space. But we actually, any private space where we can, they'll be fine if we're downstairs, right? Just him and I working together.
But we do have a 15-year-old.
We do. Yeah. So, I mean, your 8-year-old, don't leave him alone. But yeah. So we pay them a little bit, and they know, okay, if they get this house like spick and span, that they'll get paid. Okay. And then they do one of their projects at dinner that night. Each of them presents one thing from what they've learned through the week. And I think this is a really important and valuable tool, especially for homeschoolers. I think in school, there's a lot of times where you get like the chance to present or display or whatever. And in homeschool, it's like, we all see each other all day long, so there's never like a super great presentation. But with this, it gives them
usually
a chance.
We're helping them with the presentation.
Exactly. But this, what I love is it gives them a chance to pick from the material that they're learning one thing that they really loved, and develop that idea for us, and share it with us. And they didn't love it at first, but they really kind of, I think, attached themselves.
Some of them sometimes.
Sometimes it'll get to be like where I sit down and I say, okay, what's your project this week? And they're like, ooh, and then they like run around the house really quick and make something up because they don't want to miss their time. But anyway, so yeah, the little project on Friday nights has been really good. And you could set that up for your own family in a different way. Maybe Sunday afternoons or, whenever you have a nice family meal once a week or whatever. And I'm going to tell you a secret. We do not sit around the table to eat dinner. Okay. You are off the hook there. Like, it's one thing when everybody leaves all day long and then comes back together. Then I think it's crucial that you do that. But because you're not doing that, it's not so crucial. When you're with each other all day long, you don't have to sit down at dinner and talk about the things that you all did together all day long.
Right.
So we often will watch TV. Tonight we were watching Hostile Planet, which was terrible. It's a National Geographic show on Disney+.
I thought it was great.
Oh, things were dying like crazy. It was terrible. It was just adding to my stress. But those kinds of things are really good. We watch The Voice together and America's Got Talent, and it gives us a good talking point, like something else. I mean, it's, again, if you're not leaving each other all day long, you can get sick of each other if you don't distract each other with similar interests. So, okay, some priorities that we have through the week. Outdoor time, super important. Board games can be really, really educational and also teach teamwork.
I think outdoor time, to expound on that.
Yeah.
If at any time in the day they look outside and go outside, that like trumps anything else.
True.
Like if they're doing schoolwork gets to get paused. If they're outside playing, like, in a good way.
We never call them in from doing exploration stuff outside to do schoolwork.
Right.
No, the schoolwork is a guide to keep them from getting bored. I am not worried about whether or not they do everything in their curriculum. I mean, don't tell them that, but I'm just not. I like them having something to occupy their minds.
It's always there in the notebook. They'll just have to do it the next day.
They'll just have to do it the next day.
The next time it rains. But this time of year, like,
especially
once it gets even a little bit nicer, they'll hit the door like right after breakfast.
When it snowed here, it wasn't even 8:30 a.m. and I wasn't even out of bed, and they were outside. They got up, got dressed, they found all their snow clothes. I don't even know where those were, and were outside before I even got up. So there's just they just don't know. We're not going to call them back in from outside because there's nothing inside that you can learn that outside doesn't. It's magic, right? So anyway, like right now they're building a garden, a pollinator garden that they're very excited about. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely a rule of ours. Board games, kids' chosen books, like we were talking about, craft time. We love to have, like, Abraham especially, he's 4, and we love to have just like project materials for him everywhere. Scissors, tape, paper, scissors, boxes,
glue, boxes.
That's everything.
Right.
Paint, So, and then individual chores. So everybody they know the expectations for their own personal chores that they need to do. So each person has a day that they need to do their laundry. Each person has a night that they're supposed to pick dinner and make dinner. And I mean, really thinking about it, homeschool wise, my kids are going to be equipped to leave and run households, right? They're going to be equipped to manage their own selves. And it is a common complaint that I hear. And even, myself, when I went to public school, I didn't learn how to make dinner. I mean, I did because my mom taught me on most of it, but it wasn't something that, home ec for one semester is not going to get you there. So
I learned how to make spaghetti in home ec.
Really?
Yeah. That was the first time I had ever made spaghetti.
That's hilarious. Yeah. So anyway, it's just one of those things, this is a really good opportunity to teach your kids these skills. If that's all you focused on during this time, forget the curriculum. Just focus on teaching them how to do their own laundry. That's a huge, huge thing. And we'll come back to activities for the 4-year-old because I think that's a huge issue, because keeping him occupado while we're working with the older kids, or it can be hairy. It can be difficult to keep him out of their way while they're trying to do stuff. He has to have stuff. So I will just tell you right now, one of the best things that we did is he has his own cabinet of stuff. So he can go to that cabinet and he can find stuff in there and he can work and play with that stuff. And as long as he knows that's his stuff, he does a pretty good job with it.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we'll even say, he'll say he's bored.
Yeah.
And I'll say, have you looked in your cabinet?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah. And then he's gone off to make whatever in the world he's going to make.
Yeah. So that's key. And actually each of the kids has a cabinet. So that actually is really helpful too, because keeping stuff in an organized, so maybe it's just a box for now, a tote that you let them have, or their book bag. Eliza actually prefers to just keep everything in her book bag, and she just totes that all over the house with her.
Oh no, 3-year-old too. Yep.
Oh, see, yep. Be ready. I'm surprised daycare is still open. That's a little shocking to me, but anyway, so yeah, I mean, the 3-year-old, Abraham has had that cabinet since he was 3, and it's been a really good thing.
Yeah.
And then we do something like each day, I would say, that focuses on his stuff if he's not distracted. So like if he's really like needy, one thing I've been holding out there is like, we can make Play-Doh. So probably tomorrow or the next day we'll make Play-Doh. It just depends on what the outside is like. So yeah, there's just little things you can do to keep them super busy. And he will play with Play-Doh for hours.
And there's definitely power in like leveraging those bigger projects with his age.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'll leverage it for him to take a nap, for him to eat his dinner.
Yeah.
And then
leverage is a good word.
Yeah.
What is the other word people call it? Manipulate?
Manipulate, bribe.
Bribing. It's not though. Like
you call it what you want.
No,
I call it parenting.
Kids need to know that they have expectations and that they need to earn the right to have these fun experiences. I mean, I think that's true of adults, right? So yeah. Anyway, I don't think that's a bad thing. Okay, so then the next page is just favorites lists, and I'm just gonna leave that. I don't want to go on all night long, but if you have any questions about it, then feel free to ask. Bath time, I will say, 3-year-old, 4-year-old. The other day he was in the bathtub for probably an hour. I kept forgetting he was in there. I was like, where's Abraham? It's so quiet. And then I'd be like, oh, he's in the bathtub. So it can be a really great way to distract the children. And actually playing in the sink is that he would do that for hours too.
Yeah, he did that a lot more when he was younger.
Yeah. And we did somebody had one of those plastic kitchens in their house they were ready to get rid of. And so we took it and put it outside with some sand and some like yogurt containers, and outside were the plastic forks and knives and stuff, and he will play with that for hours too. So 3 and 4-year-olds are so curious. If you just find them some things, it doesn't have to be fancy boxes. Yeah. Markers. Yeah. So, and then some other things that we love, origami.
I see cooking down there.
Oh yeah. So cooking favorites. Another great thing when you're homeschooling, you can get your kids to cook. So a lot of times I'll be like, Naomi, because she's older, I'll just be like, Naomi, make us this. And she'll just make it, or she'll come up with something and make it. She makes amazing baked goods. The same now with the 11-year-old. I can say, hey, Eliza and Leviah, the 8 and 11-year-old, we want chocolate chip cookies. And the other day they made chocolate chip cookies. And it's nice to just say order in and
then you have the 4-year-old and you have to like do a little meditation before you start and get your mind right.
Yeah, because cooking with kids is hard.
And then you cook
it's
with
probably
them.
the hardest parenting job there is.
It is, but kids. I feel like it's a very important.
It's so important, but it is the
hardest. Got like math, science, technology, even
basic life skills,
life skills, all of it wrapped up in there.
Yeah.
And as long as you come into it, being prepared that it's going to be a mess, that they're going to like
disastrous,
drop stuff, spill stuff, and you might have something at the end, then you're okay.
Yeah. Oh, been so many messes, but it is worth it in the end. And they are, like I said, now older and incapable of doing that completely by themselves. So it's really been
But we've been
worth
baking.
the effort.
We've been baking.
Yeah, we've been baking more. Yeah. And some of the simpler things you can do too is like to make bread and then let them do the kneading. So maybe they watch you measure the ingredients and then you let them knead and give them their own little section or whatever. So there's lots of little things like you can do to make it so it's fun for everyone. And there's some really great simple recipes for bread out there. My 8-year-old made rolls yesterday, and I think the recipe's literally like the world's simplest rolls or something like that. That's
but she can pump those out all by herself.
All by herself. Yeah. And I mean, it's amazing. It's a really nice thing. So.
And I think that's the other key to it is like just in the home in general is setting up a system so that the kids have access to everything. Like making it so they, can.
If you can.
Yeah. As much as we can, like all our plates and stuff are on our base cabinets, like in the bottom level.
Yeah.
And
so they can get set table, empty dishwasher, all of those things without us having to reach for them to get stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. That's about it. I think other than that, I mean, we really hit on everything. The weekly schedule review extras in the extra section, that is massive for us. It's been huge in making our life easier as a family, staying at home together. I didn't mention chores. I mean, our kids have farm chores, and not all kids have farm chores, but it's something that's really valuable for them to feel like they're a part of what's happening, a part of the projects that we're all working on together. So I definitely would encourage you to think of it more as team effort, right? Homeschooling is a team effort. But anyways, So lots of patience, yes, for cooking at home. Oh my goodness. But yeah, so I think that's really it. If you guys have any questions, I think somebody had asked me, what kind of parameters do I use, or how did you, it was Sarah Lee. What did you say, Sarah Lee? You said something about basic guidelines, or I can't remember how she called it. But in terms of like end of grade testing and that kind of thing, with homeschool, there is end of grade testing that you're supposed to do yearly. Honestly, I use it as a measure just to see what I need to, what I should help them work on. I know what their strengths are. I know what their weaknesses are, because we're together all the time, I know, I can see what they struggle with. I can see what they're excelling at. And so honestly, what I will say is I am learning and have learned to stop pushing the things that doesn't come quite as easily, and challenge them more on the things that do. And I wish that had happened for me. And it's nobody's, looking back, no one knows. I think that we all should focus more on the things that come as natural gifts and challenge ourselves on those things more than try to make ourselves good at everything. What do they say? A well-rounded person is boring. No, that's not what they say. I forget. Well-rounded something is not, shouldn't be our life goal. And when we're in homeschooling mode, we don't have to make that our goal. When they're in school, they have to, because end of grades are coming and they have to pass. And, there's just all these criteria that they have to meet. But we've just been, so liberating to think, well, look, I can focus on what my kid is interested in and fuel that. And if somebody is passionately learning something and knows how to passionately learn and apply themselves to that thing, I mean, that's a superpower this day and age. Yeah. So I don't know a lot of people who actually are really good at that. I think it's a thing that we're all trying to develop, but if we can, as parents, help them develop that from an early age, it's pretty powerful. So anyway.
For sure.
That's it. All right. I'm sure maybe you're still feeling overwhelmed. I don't know, but I just want you to feel some relief that the expectations that maybe you put on yourself or your child are totally fabricated by the system. And the system you got to set that aside for right now, because it's shut down. So don't feel like you have to implement that. And for those of you who are already homeschooling, I hope this was a little encouraging for you too. It's not ever going to be like every day is beautiful and looks like the most perfect homeschool day. I'll tell you, there's been times when I've been sick, I have a migraine, and they're like, it's a free for all. Or I have been pregnant for 3 months and it's free for all for 3 months, it's just.
Or you've been out of town for a week.
Yeah, or I'm out of town.
And then they're just with dad.
And dad takes over, and it's different. And so the flexibility, though, is that's all how life is, right? That's how life is.
Right.
Anyways.
So if you got other questions, throw them in the comments. We'll answer as we go. If you got any other tips.
Yes. For you,
homeschool professionals out there too.
There are some seasoned homeschoolers in this group.
So throw those in the comments too.
Yes. Learning from other people's wisdom is the best thing you can do on any level. So again, the point of this group, let's learn from each other. So please share.
All right.
All right, cool. Well, thanks all. Have a really good night. Stay safe. And I'm thinking the weather's going to be good tomorrow here.
Yeah.
So I hope it is where you are at and you enjoy it. All right. Have a good one.